Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming here. And we have a very exciting talk today. We're going to talk about the future of AI for the next decade. Now, without a doubt, the AI has had a great impact on all of our lives and will probably continue to have impact for the foreseeable future. And I believe we've barely just started. So now that AI will continue to grow and have an impact on more and more of our lives, I'm very excited to be here for two reasons. First, it's a very exciting topic. And two, we have a fantastic group of visionaries and people who are on the forefront of developing AI. So please help me welcome our guests. And I'll hand it to you guys to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Georg. I worked something like 20 years at the frontiers of technology. I'm originally from Germany. I moved to Canada to make video games. You might have played a few of them if you played PC games, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Assassin's Creed. I ended up in Texas for a while, working for Electronic Arts, then in Singapore, and spent about 7-something years at Meta, looking after various things, including financial technologies, and the last couple of years I've been dealing with AI, artificial intelligence, and we just founded what we call the Center for AI Leadership, which is a nonprofit aiming at helping people who are not into tech to manage AI, understand AI, and lead through AI transformation without having to be technological experts, but understanding the consequences.
Yeah. Hi, all. I'm Vaik. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Dynamo AI. So we help enterprises across finance, Fortune 500 companies to identify the vulnerabilities in your AI models. Like, where is the model hallucinating? What kind of data leaks, PII leaks, or compliance problems you have with your models? And how do you now make sure these models are being deployed in a compliant manner? So we provide the guardrails, the training strategies, end-to-end pipeline for enterprises to push these language models or vision models to production. Before starting Dynamo, I did my PhD at MIT, and my thesis ended up becoming the company. We are based in San Francisco, New York City, Paris, and in Bangalore, and hope to expand to Singapore soon.
Thanks so much for having me. My name is Jake Bruckman. I'm the founder and CEO of CoinFund. CoinFund is a blockchain-focused investment firm based in New York, Miami, and Boston. And we've been operating since 2015 in our mission to champion the leaders of the new internet, by which, of course, we mean the open and decentralized internet of Web3. Since 2020, we've been watching and starting to invest in the intersection of AI and Web3. And we're investors today in companies like WorldCoin, Jensen AI, and a number of other companies in that space. So excited to be here to talk AI and Web3.
Thank you, gentlemen. And last, I'm Ahmed Rashad. I'm the CEO of Kiva AI. We provide very high-quality, high-volume data labeling and build foundational models for niche use cases, all powered by a combo of AI, a lot of Web3 that gives us an edge over everyone, I think, over everyone else in the field, and some good old sweat. So thank you all. So this is very exciting, and I'm very excited about the future. So let's start with this question. What's your P of doom? So what's the probability that AI is going to doom us all in the next few years? 0%, 0.1%, 0.5%, or sub 1%? I'm not biased at all, by the way.
Should I start?
Please.
I go back and forth, but of course I tend to be sort of on the lower end of that spectrum. I think probably less than 5%.
Yeah. I think it's going to be 0%. I'm a huge believer that AI is always going to enable people to do better things. So it's never going to be a doom. It's always a boon.
So you're setting me up to do the opposite, but I won't. So if I get this straight, and the conversation has just, I think, been very active in the last couple of days since the OpenAI safety team resigned and started making a lot of noise around it, and published some graph. One of those graphs goes up, in AGI in a few years. It's a little bit weird, right? From the primordial soup of data link spam, blogs, nudes, and whatever else is on the internet shall arise, and artificial intelligence, AGI, God, that will be smarter than all of us, or it will doom us all. It's a bit much, right? Apart from interpolating on what we've seen in the last 3 years, drawing a straight line, that's not what's dooming us, right? If anything is going to doom us, you go outside, you feel the temperature, you look at the annual temperature anomaly over the last couple of years. That's a thing we should be concerned about, even with AI, because every single company, every tech company has blown their carbon budget, and their net zero commitments are gone because we're growing in AI. So what I'm saying is we don't need super smart AI to doom us. Very inefficient AI can do it as well by mechanisms we already know.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. So what would you say are 1 or 2 recent developments in AI that you're very excited about? Jake, please.
Well, I would be remiss, of course, if I didn't mention Web3. I think at CoinFund, our core thesis about why the intersection of Web3 and AI is interesting is because that we fundamentally believe that AI production, the pipeline that creates AI, the hardware availability, the training, the inference, the data, should be an open resource. It should be open source. It should encourage innovation. You should not have to be a researcher who must work at a big tech company if you want to do AI research. And also addressing some of the concerns that people have around AI safety, I think we also fundamentally believe that open AI is fundamentally safer AI for a number of reasons. So my hope, and in many ways, the reason that CoinFund is interested in investments in this area is to promote open and sort of public goods versions of AI models and their applications.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's with the advent of LLMs, we want to make sure all these models are in fact being deployed in a responsible, trustworthy, and compliant manner, right? So specifically with multimodal, that's coming up. So now we're going to see generative AI for images, videos. It's really important we make use of these technologies in the right way.
Yeah, so the pattern here is I have to be excited about what I work on, right? So I have to say that what makes me excited about AI is the leadership opportunity. That sounds a bit contrived, but bear with me. When we look at AI at a fundamental level, which is what we do as our job, we see a new general purpose technology, a technology that gives us capabilities, broadly applicable capabilities across all kinds of spectrums, that we did not have before, and we can do new things with them. And that is exciting, especially when you realize that this is not like previous technological improvement in the last decade. When you buy cloud, you're like, I adopt it. That's what you do. Your customers don't even realize it, right? Nothing really changes. Maybe the experience gets a little bit better, but it's transparent. With AI, it's a little bit different. When you bring it into your company, we advise, for example, game companies, the implications aren't limited to the technology department that you might feel you want to go to and say, hey, you guys, you tech guys, should we bring in more tech to, solve problems? What can we do with it? That's a bit self-serving. When you realize that in this case, the technology affects artists, the technology affects people in writing, in marketing. It is a general purpose technology, and we cannot afford to just leave that to the tech people. Sorry, tech people, right? Tech person myself, because we cannot alone be trusted. It is very self-serving. And so I'm very excited because this offers an opportunity for the world to unwind 20 years of, we'll put all the responsibility into technology, and we kind of absolve ourselves from understanding the consequences, and we deal with them later. I worked at Facebook. I saw some of the consequences, right? So that's what I'm excited about. There's an opportunity for change with this technology.
Wonderful, wonderful. So one of the technologies that are getting a lot of publicity is LLMs, right? Like OpenAI started with ChatGPT, and they made a very big deal about it, and it gets a lot of attention. So I'm curious to hear you guys' thoughts about. So what are your views on open source versus closed source LLMs?
I think what we actually see is that
there's probably a little bit more innovation going on in open source than even in proprietary AI. I mean, first of all, the time between when kind of a AI breakthrough has been made, and then that same breakthrough would be demonstrated in open source, that time to open source has been compressing dramatically, right? Like we saw just a few years ago, we saw OpenAI launch DALL-E 3, and then like literally just a few months later, we had Stability AI launch Stable Diffusion, and that time just keeps compressing more and more and more. We've seen a ton of open source work done on kind of compressing the size of models while keeping the performance and benchmarking and intelligence of the models the same. We've seen kind of augmentation strategies and so forth. And finally, there was even, a year or something ago, there was a memo from Google, which is probably a bit alarmist, but was saying, hey, like we don't have any special advantage over open source research. I'm a big believer in the fact that open source is going to be good. Like again, taking something like the safety question, when these companies make the assertion that safety should be done in sort of the privacy of or the custody of a big tech company, what they're really saying is that we think a couple of hundred people can solve AI alignment or AI safety. And what the world that I would like to see is when thousands of researchers, or maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of researchers, are working on this problem, because then I think we can actually solve that problem. There's also, in safety, there's a kind of a theme that we don't know how neural networks work. And this is actually kind of a fundamental argument about why models can be unsafe. And I think what happens is the way that you learn how they work is that you have to do research, on the model data. Like the model data has to be open. There's amazing research in the market right now about kind of how model safety mechanisms have very coherent statistical properties if you can look at the nodes and how they behave during inference. So I think creating that kind of openness is actually really, really beneficial to all these processes. And finally, like if there is a level of danger or risk that models present, I would argue that you need more transparency, not less. Like I would want to see regulation that actually says, hey, like we want to see everything that OpenAI is doing, because this is going to be a process that gradually leads to risk, right? And the more transparency that we have, the more arguably we can control that risk. That's our view.
Yeah, I feel like there needs to be a balance to what Jake said. Mainly because like if you're like a company that's building like on top of like proprietary data, sometimes it's actually hard for the company to actually release the model and like the data because it has like the sensitive information on a lot of people. But said that, it's really important for us to have like open source like explainability tools that clearly say, okay, these are all the problems that are like with the model that you've trained, and can you now like fix these problems, right? So definitely a big fan of like open source like research when it comes to like building like fundamental base models, which is what we've seen like Llama do or like Mistral do. But at the same time, I think it's important to keep in mind of the privacy and the compliance requirements while releasing like data sets or like models.
So just one comment on what you said. Releasing the data that is used to train a model is not necessarily the same as releasing the weights of that model. So in fact, Llama 3 is an open model in the sense of having its weights released, but we don't know what data it's actually been.
Exactly. So the one thing I want to add here is for like something like a base model that's trained on like non-sensitive data, that's fine. But like if you're like a Salesforce or like, I don't know, like any like JP Morgan, Citi, then you really cannot release the model that was trained on like your customers' data, because from the model you can perform like inversion attacks or like membership inference, data extraction attacks that would actually leak the sensitive information. So you want to make sure you train the models in a privacy-preserving way then.
That's why I would offer like why Web3 is so interesting is because on the data side, you can actually have data unions where not only is it like legal and feasible to train on that data, everyone collectively benefits from it, and maybe even that's a business model for them.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that's a very, very interesting point. What I'm hearing is that I feel that a lot of people agree that open source is not just a good thing, it's actually needed. But there needs to be a little bit of a balance. There needs to be some control and governance around the data side. In some cases, in others, it's really good to have the data open. So Jake, I guess, what role do you see decentralization, blockchain, Web3 playing in this future of open source models?
It's a democratizing force for the pipeline that creates AI and its products. And that pipeline consists of, obviously, compute. Like, for example, there's always this question of, will proprietary big tech models always be one step ahead? I think recently Ahmad even said that he believes that would be true. There's other people who believe that open source will overtake proprietary models and create more intelligent models or more efficient models, et cetera. Web3 actually enables that. Using Web3, you can create a decentralized computation network that can actually rival the investment that a company like Google, or OpenAI or Meta, et cetera, can make in a data center. There's also a bunch of people working on things like commodity hardware networks that are used to train, and inference models, and that's something that, most people in kind of the industrial AI complex aren't concerned about. Everyone's concerned about, getting to the AGI race, but that's also an incredibly important problem to solve. The other part of the pipeline would be, decentralized training. Like a few years ago, a lot of AI people would say, hey, like, that's just not going to work, and it doesn't make any sense, and why would you do this, and it's slower. And again, the reality is, like, you want to work on that problem. Like, you want to create systems that are robust to censorship in certain ways, and the only way to do that is to solve decentralized training. So one of our portfolio companies, Jensen, is arguably one of the 2 or 3 companies in the world that are even like remotely close to solving that problem. And finally, inference is going to play a huge role in the sense that that's where all of the AI, transactional activity will actually take place. You train a model once, but you can inference it, millions and infinite number of times. So how do you get sort of the most efficiency out of that? Like, we can argue that there are reasons why decentralized networks will also lower costs here, in significant ways and make AI more accessible to everybody in the world.
Yeah, so the future seems to be much brighter if we manage to bring the Web3 technology and the capabilities from Web3 to enable the next wave of open source, transparent, highly capable, controlled at the same time AI applications. So LLMs get a lot of attention. What do you guys think comes after LLMs?
I think the next big thing is definitely like multimodal, like kind of like how do you have like these like really like nice applications that are going to empower a lot of like content generation across like multimedia, right? So we are like seeing a lot of like models slowly starting to get built and like released in this space. So I'm a big fan of like multimodal, and I'm excited to see where it takes us.
Yeah. So the other question, let me pivot here a little bit. So now we're thinking about the modalities of AI. Let's talk about industries and the broader use of AI. So for example, when I think about enterprises, governments, legacy industries, and how can we actually leverage AI to transform those industries that haven't had a real transformation in a very long time?
Yeah, so some of the things we see with, like, say, for example, like smaller banks or like governments, their number one like priority, or like the reason why they're like a little bit skeptical of adopting AI in a larger scheme of things is mainly because of privacy or like compliance challenges, where like that is of like utmost importance for them. So one thing which we enable at Dynamo is like for these like healthcare companies or like finance companies or like governments, how can they deploy AI in a fully compliant, cost-efficient, and transparent manner, right? So you want to like make sure you're clearly understanding all the vulnerabilities with these models, like what sensitive information can the model leak, or like where is the model like hallucinating, like what use cases it works, where it doesn't. And then once you have a clear understanding of these like problems, and once you fix them, then I think the confidence of like pushing AI to large-scale production is going to get easier, specifically for like finance and healthcare and government.
Yeah.
I like this because we're usually getting ahead of ourselves, right? We're like, I would liken the situation we have with AI right now as like, people are standing in the supermarket and they look at all the AI and they're like, well, I was told to buy AI, but I don't actually know what to use it for yet. Right? We're talking about the future, but when we look at the last 8 months, the number one problem we had is that every company kicked off their big pilots and most of them failed. Right? And they kicked them off because they were told this is the new thing and you have to be on the new things. And government have to embrace new things because if you miss out on the growth in something that accelerates at this speed, you're kind of screwed. Right? So we're writing with the speed of technology and the acceleration that we create. We are pushing this, and we are now creating the narrative that, you know, we need to transform these industries. We can't actually tell you why, exactly how right now, but we still want to transform these industries. And I'm going to loop back to open source, where, you know, I'm not going to disagree at all on, like, it is really important that we don't hand 5 companies the ability to scale a technology that has this much of a ability to shape opinion onto everyone. Right? But at the same time, if we take a step back, if we look at the fundamentals, this is everyone, everywhere, all at once. The primary purpose of open source is acceleration of the technology. Right? There's a concerted push to accelerate this technology and all the change that comes with it. And the number one contributor to that acceleration is one of the largest companies on the planet that spent more money than on the US government spent to end World War II with the Manhattan Project on model weights and gave them to everyone. And yet, when I go to companies, when I go to government agencies, when I go to all these different places and I ask people, do you know why Meta gave away Llama for free? No one really knows. And that is frightening, because when we're talking about the future and what things are doing, out of a car that goes at 200 miles an hour and people keep putting gas in there to speed it up, we should probably think about why that is and why people are pouring gas, right? And to do that, you have to, if you don't have the technical experts, you have to look at first principles. You have to ask, well, what happens when we give content industries the tools to make content much faster? And we very quickly get to the point of, oh, wait, if you can make content much faster, if you can have 6 Frozen movies in a year because no one in Southeast Asia needs to work on them anymore, it's just a tight creative team with powerful AI tools somewhere on Skywalker Ranch, then there will be many more Frozen movies. And in fact, it won't just be Disney, because the model isn't from Disney, it's from another company that obviously wants everyone to saturate the compute, right? And when you look at that and you go that chain of causalities down, you come very quickly to the conclusion that the marketplace will be swamped with more content. The value of individual content goes down, because in an economic system, when your problem is not the creation of something anymore, it becomes the selling. And the selling happens on 3, 4 large digital platforms who charge ads on everything you sell. The more content there is, the more ads are sold. What is the business model of Meta? Oh, wait, ads, right? So I think it's very worthwhile for us, instead of going, oh, will the future be, Doom, AGI, what will be the magical robots that will serve us water? They are not here today, apparently, but like, when we don't have that, right, let's not look at that. Let's look at what is happening right now, who is accelerating, where is the money coming from, and where is it going? And I think then we have much better answers. And every company needs to ask that for themselves, because even Disney, in the amazed, we can roll out these movies so much faster now, we pay so much less for our creators, ends up in a situation where they spend all those savings on ads, and in a situation where everyone else can do what they can do today, because their specialty is large-scale production with logistics, which no one else was able to match. So we need to be very careful about this.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that we have incredible potential here, and right now there are a lot of things that we need to figure out. There are a lot of concerns, but there's also a lot of potential.
So let's make it faster.
So let's make it faster. That actually makes sense. So there's a lot of potential, but also there's a lot of governance, and it appears that Web3 and open source can actually help with that issue, because it removes or decentralizes some of the decision making outside of a handful of companies. Now, with that said, do you draw any parallels between AI today, or the AI Web3 combination, and the invention of the printing press, for example, or any new hyper-disruptive industry or technology that came in the past?
It's funny you should mention the printing press, right? That it led to 100 years of war in Europe, because a monk put some Protestant writing onto a church door, and it got printed and moved way beyond the speed of word at the time, all over the continent, and it reshuffled the entire European security system, organizations, and everything, and people were killing each other for a solid 100 years, right? So again, probably caution as a primary take from history there. Beyond that, understanding. We need to understand what the effects are. We have the benefit of looking back at a rich history of humankind. We understand things we do that are similar and that are different. Everyone invokes industrialization at the point when it comes to jobs. I've not met anyone who hasn't asked, hey, will AI wipe out the jobs? Will the jobs okay? And I've very quick answers to that. Number one, who cares about jobs? I mean, okay, economists do, but when people ask you that questions, they aren't asking about jobs. They're asking, will I be okay? And that is easy to answer. How much money do you have saved to get past losing your job because efficiency drove up by AI in your field? And B, how much time do you think for those new jobs to appear? And C, when you are faced with a technology that extracts patterns from creation. Here's a pile of images. Oh, now we can create images. Here's a pile of sales pitches. Oh, we can now create sales pitches. Which jobs can you take that this technology cannot take? So, sure, we will always find new jobs. I'm a game designer. I can come up with, right now, with 10 of them. That's not the problem. The question is, can we do it without society falling over itself? Because the pace is the problem today. The pace of moving at the speed of fiber is the problem with this technology. It took electricity 70 years to get the cables everywhere, the power plants. We had enough time to churn those jobs.
Well, but do you think that it also creates productivity? Like maybe, we've seen a lot of generative AI, and I actually think generative AI for art and music is a little bit underappreciated.
No, hell yes,
as a
it
medium.
Does. Right? What is productivity? You go back down to the source. Productivity means we can do a thing faster, right? Or more efficient. And with AI, honestly, it's not the cost, it's the efficiency that kills you in the end, right? So yes, we can. We can do a lot of things, and we can probably build bigger things now. You could make bigger games, right? If you're choosing to compete on that. Right? But for most industries, it comes down to a fundamental principle, which is, can you grow? When we're looking at ads, the entire industry that gives us AI, because Microsoft decided to attack Google on the search monopoly and trigger this war that we are now in. When you look at that, you know that ads is kind of eyeball locked. And in the pandemic, we all had a lot more time on our phones, and all the tech stocks went up, and everyone was very happy. And now we're down, and barring a pandemic, let's hope not, there isn't a lot of growth anymore, because we're not really expanding, in connectivity anymore into Southeast Asia, all of these things. So you have a fixed ecosystem. In this case, eyeballs, but it could also be, can I sell more slippers, or can I sell more movies, right? But movies are attention economy. Can I sell more movies? Well, do you have time between TikTok, Spotify, Netflix, Roblox? Do you have time? And the answer is, we are already locked. So when you add more content to that, the only outcome, more productivity, the only outcome is going to be you have to bring the bottom line up. We can do more with less. The shareholder demands the value, so we're going to have to lay people off.
Yeah. So a point here, the way I think about AI is that it generally does three things. It automates things that we do. It takes them away completely. It allows us to do the things we're already doing a little bit faster, so adds productivity and efficiency, or it does things that we currently cannot do at all. And while thinking about, yes, it has impact on some industries, but it also could help us, for example, provide higher quality of healthcare in rural Africa, for example. It will create new jobs. Even with us at Kiva, we're bringing a lot of jobs to the global south. So there's a lot of transfer and democratization, even though I don't really like that word, but
I mean,
a little
it's funny you
overused.
mentioned Africa, right? Like I was looking at Emad's presentation yesterday, right? CEO of Stability, there were these kids in Africa on one of the pictures on their tablets with their headphones and their completely destroyed shoes. And I'm like, what's wrong with you people, right? Like, can't we just, like Maslow's pyramid does not have tech right down here, right? Can we fix that first? We don't, like, I was at Meta when, you know, they tried to, I was in Meta finance engineering, not financial engineering, financial software engineering, when they tried to do the whole Libra thing, right? And the narrative shifted from poor kids in Africa, financial inclusion, to you need to do this because otherwise China is going to do it, right? So I'm a little bit burned out on the mission-driven side of technology. I do agree with you, though, like just to give you this a positive note. There are many things we can do, and we don't need to go to Africa to bring poor kids healthcare. We can go here to Singapore to the most advanced healthcare organizations in the region, if not on the planet, and we can look at workflows that have endless paper training workflows that are from 30 years ago, where a vision transformer today, when you plug it into a computer vision system, into a camera, can tell you if the floor is getting dirty, if things are broken, and so on, and can dispatch a maintenance crew. And you can automate these things, and you can reclaim the human resources involved with that for more impactful things, right? Yeah. Like, there is opportunity here because we have a new capability, right? But there's no default destiny for those new capabilities to create value for humans unless we choose to.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on the applications, right? Like, okay, is my end goal to have like, okay, AI for like affordable healthcare, or like AI to improve the a particular country's economy. So as long as we have like these like meaningful applications, definitely AI is going to be a big plus for every single country.
Yeah, yeah, wonderful. Well, we're almost out of time. I wanted to end this with just a broad question. What are you most excited about in the next decade about AI? Jake, please.
Well, I think that learning about AI models and subsequently how intelligence works is going to give us a lot of insight into sort of our own intelligence. And I think there's also a ton of really interesting math and science and research to be done on, you know, things like alignment, things like neural networks. So we're going to really expand our sort of knowledge about models, but the other frontier is just using these things to then accelerate that knowledge even further, creating, you know, drugs, creating solutions to difficult math and physics problems, and just furthering exponentially kind of the frontier of what we know is what I'm looking forward to.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to like the number of like real world like applications, as I said. Pretty confident that in the next 10 years we're going to solve a lot of like healthcare based problems, economic like problems in a lot of like poor countries. So the number of real world applications, we're going to see like obviously things like alignment or like policy optimizations, bringing in compliance, all those things in like one side, but I'm excited for like the number of actual problems that's going to help like human beings progress in life.
I'm really excited about that too.
I'm old enough. I went through .com. My first company disappeared in a .com. I came there in the morning. They were gone, and so on. Everyone is talking about this with AI. I don't know how that will go, right? But what I see is what we had back then, everyone was like, and the entire human race will be delighted because the internet will give all of them information. That didn't work out so well. There's a whole bunch of these scenarios. So I'll stick with fundamentals again. What we have here, for good or for bad, is the ability for people to express themselves a lot more. So I do a lot of slides. I'm not artistically capable. I would also have never hired an artist to do my slides, right? Now I can illustrate my slides, for example. I can express myself. I made video games for much of my career. I know my son will be able to make video games without the need of a massive studio. That's not a bad thing at all. It's a constraint of our economic system that we require everyone to have a job, and that, when we democratize capability, whether or not it's gunpowder taking lethality, right, and democratizing it, and some nations on this planet are still struggling with that, right? The samurai didn't really like it either, right? And it didn't work out well. When we do these things, it is primarily constructs of our own creation, in this case our economic system, that is bounding the opportunity that is with it. We all can express ourselves. Everyone here will be able in their lifetime to create a video game in conversation with a computer. The Star Trek holodeck that many of us grew up with in these very optimistic sci-fi shows is technologically possible today, right? Maybe not 100%, but we're very close. And that is exciting. The question is, can we reconfigure at a pace, at a change management that our societies can handle these changes that AI is forcing? That gunpowder is not going back into the box. No one is going to be able to take those open source models away. None of this is possible. It's just impossible in an interconnected world. So what we advocate for is come to terms with the technology, and then on a fundamental level understand what changes need to be made. You need leadership now. If you are a manager, if you are working inside a box created for you, and this technology comes in and you can clearly see it is breaking the box, you have to become a leader, or you have to push on the people who have the capacity to lead to address the fact that the box is leaking.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things to be excited about. From what I'm hearing, and my personal view is that AI is going to enable a lot of new frontiers in medicine and law and legal and governance and gaming and technology and content creation. There are a few things that we need to be aware about information rights, privacy, monopolies, and so on and so forth. But the overall sense I'm getting is that the future is bright, and we just have to be careful. We have to build it thoughtfully, and we have to capitalize on this unprecedented opportunity where the rate of acceleration is just way higher than anything we've seen before. And with that, I'd love to close. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.